6th of December, 1989. Survival, Part 3. The final episode of Doctor Who's 26th season. And the final episode of the original Doctor Who. Every empire has its time, and every empire falls. But that which is dead can live again in the hands of a believer. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and this one is gonna be a little different. For weeks now, I have been uploading videos about the new era on the modern series, and yeah, if you were to actually speak to me, you would know that isn't what I actually care about. I'm much more a fan of the real Doctor Who, the original Doctor Who. That's the show I watched so much, that's the show I made a channel to talk about. This new stuff is all pretty cool, I'm very glad we've got it, and as you guys know, I am always rooting for it. But where my passions lie is with the original run and beyond. Because yes, today I am going to be venturing into a land undiscovered. A portion of the Doctor Who universe with little to no online coverage to this day. Yes, today we are talking about the the expanded universe.
Must have been dark times, those 90s.
Over the past couple of months, you may have heard me referring to a few concepts here and there that, if you are a modern Who only fan of the series, may seem a bit alien to you. The Cartmel plan, the Doctor being half human, looms, and I think it's my duty to finally explain myself, or at least try to. A lot of this stuff is pretty damn complicated, but here we are. This brings us to the topic of the video. You guys read the title, you know what I'm talking about. Lungbarrow, a controversial story in the deeper depths of the Doctor Who fandom, and one which I have been making reference to for quite a while now. So you can imagine my shock when I was browsing the TARDIS wiki page, you know, as you do, and discovered it empty. There's nothing there. And so I thought I should make a video about this. Now I know, trust me, I know, nobody cares. Outside of myself, probably 3 people care about this topic in the world, but I don't care. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I have the uncanny ability to jabber on about Doctor Who daily for an obscene amount of time. Just hours on hours of meaningless conversation. What am I even talking about? And I thought this is a part of the fandom which would be cool to have more people interested in. Can't just be me, guys, haha. And so, for mostly myself, and also to give me a head start on a future project that may be coming on the horizon, I decided to go ahead on the video. So, to everyone watching, listen up, gather round and hear me out as I try to explain in as simple a manner as possible, what is Lungbarrow? Okay, before we get into the video, I kind of want to set the scene real quick. I'm going to be talking a lot about books. Not at the start, don't worry, but later on in the video. It's going to be pretty hard to come up with visuals for the screen that aren't just the pages, and I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to be using a variety of images associated with the respective novels. Luckily, Lungbarrow has a lot of these. Unluckily, this topic is very dense, which means I might run out. But anyway, now that I got that out of the way, let's dive back in. Where did we leave off? The late 80s were a rough time for Doctor Who. 1985 saw Doctor Who being placed on hiatus, with it returning 18 months later with a shortened episode length and count. The original plans for season 23 had to be scrapped, and the creatives decided to move in a new direction. Tragedy struck once again, however, when Robert Holmes passed before fully being able to complete his vision for the story, and with script editor Eric Saywood leaving after a terrible falling out with head showrunner John Nathan Turner, things were looking pretty dire. Somehow, despite it all, Trial of a Time Lord managed to emerge in a semi-complete state. The times were changing, and John Nathan Turner decided Doctor Who needed a shake-up. Unceremoniously booting Colin Baker out the door, he decided on a new Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. Enter Andrew Cartmel. Time in the Rani is one of the episodes of all time. Season 24 starts with a whimper as Doctor Who flexes its new and reduced budget. Having had its writing staff and funding slashed in the culling that was season 23, Doctor Who was left directionless. Andrew Cartmel joined too late in the process and was unable to adequately shift direction to a way he thought the show should go. At this point, John Nathan Turner had been showrunner of Doctor Who since season 18 with Tom Baker. He had overseen 3 separate regenerations, and his unique style, which had once been bold and new, was slowly becoming arguably a detriment to the show. He loved logos, iconography. Every character had to wear a special costume, and costumes which looked more like costumes than actual everyday wear. None is this more present than in season 19, where the main cast practically never change out of their clothes for the entire season. He wanted to capture the worldwide market, which is why Tegan and Perry were included. And now, over 6 years in, he wanted to leave, but he wasn't allowed to. Higher ups at the BBC, the same ones going for Doctor Who's neck, told him that if he left, then Doctor Who was going bye-bye, so he had to stay. Season 24 wasn't the big success he hoped it to be. Episodes like Delta and the Bannerman were the Paradise Towers is fun. And Dragonfire introduced Ace. Mel, the companion introduced in Trial of a Time Lord, left in this one, and in her place was the new and definitive 7th Doctor companion. Retroactively in New Who, they're trying to make Mel out to have been this massive deal. Let me tell you, buddy, she was not. I liked her and was mocked for it. I think at one point I may have been the only person in the fandom who actually liked Mel for the longest time. I love the commentary for the giggle where Rusty Davies is talking about Mel and he's like, what was her backstory again? You and me both, brother. He said something about her parents having been implied to have been turned into Cybermen. If that is true, that is a deep cut. I have never heard of that before in my life. Basically, she was into fitness. That's it. Ace, on the other hand, real name Dorothy Gale, Ace got caught in a time storm in 1987 and ended up on Iceworld in the far, far future. Her hobbies included listening to those boomie boxes that the kids enjoy and blowing stuff up. She likes nitroglycerin and Nitro 9. And so the stage was set. Season 24 has ended and season 25 was just beginning.
Our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future.
En posant leur candidature pour le marché commun.
Successful and prosperous future. One day, this nation will rise up, live up.
Andrew Cartmel was born on the 6th of April 1958. Raised in Canada, he worked at Cambridge in the mid-1980s before getting into Doctor Who through connections he'd made and a recommendation from John Nathan Turner's agent. He later worked on the massively successful series Casualty, which I only know of because of the crossover it has in development with Doctor Who. Cartmel's status was unique in that he was one of the first creatives in charge who had grown up around Doctor Who as a program. He could appreciate its effect and legacy far differently than others who had previously been in charge. This gave him a unique perspective and a vision for the program that he sought to quickly implement. Remembrance of the Daleks is one of my favorite stories of all time. And it is a massive one. Written by Ben Aaronovitch, this episode serves as the starter for Doctor Who's 25th anniversary season. And let me just say, this is how you do an anniversary. Immediately, the new shift in focus is made clear. The show returns to where it all began. 76 Totters Lane and Coal Hill School, 1963. We've got Daleks, we got more Daleks, we got the special weapons Dalek. And we've got the Hand of Omega. Shit's crazy. Let's try and explain the lore of this episode. In his first incarnation, the Doctor stole a device from Gallifrey called the Hand of Omega. If you don't know, Omega was an intergalactic engineer and one of the big three of Time Lord society, alongside Rassilon, and some other bloke. I'm sure he's not important. Omega was the main creator of time travel technology, but was trapped in a black hole, surviving alone through sheer willpower in the antimatter dimension. He was the main antagonist in the Doctor Who 10th anniversary special, The Three Doctors, and season 20's opener, Arc of Infinity. Basically, the Hand of Omega was made by him to turn stars into supernovas. The Daleks heard that the Doctor had this, and so went to get it. Except, this leads back to the episode Resurrection of the Daleks. There are now two Dalek factions. After being captured at the end of Destiny of the Daleks go to rescue him from a prison to aid them in their war against the Movellans. Long story short, Davros tries to take over these new Daleks and succeeds. Mostly, kinda. There are now two groups, the Renegade Daleks and the Imperial Daleks. The Renegade Daleks are the black ones and they serve under the Supreme Dalek. The Imperial Daleks are the white and gold ones and they serve under Davros, who is now calling himself the Emperor of the Daleks. However, this is all a part of Doctor Who's plan. You see, he's playing 4D chess and is basically the puppet master behind this whole exchange. In fact, the driving force of the story is that he needs to intentionally let Davros have the Hand of Omega so that he can shoot Skaro's son with it to power up the Daleks in the past so that they can get stronger in the future so that they'll be able to destroy the Time Lords.
The Daleks shall sweep away Gallifrey and its impotent quorum of Time Lords!
Hey, that might be important later. Did you get all that? But then it turns out to be a double bluff. And the Hand of Omega actually just blows Skaro up instead. Whoops. This of course creates a paradox because Skaro was destroyed before the Daleks were created. So all of the Daleks that are here get disintegrated. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. This story is shockingly good. From the incredible opening with that score to the action-packed set pieces and cliffhangers of every episode, the rich themes and deep messaging right from the very first line. It's like everything is perfectly crafted for the Daleks to be there. And it also works as an anniversary story while seeding the start of the Cartmel plan. Over the past few years, general consensus among the writers was that the original mystery of who the Doctor was, the Who in Doctor Who, had started to fade. More and more have been uncovered about him as the stories progressed, and what made the show so mysterious at the start was gone. Or was it? The Cartmel plan set out to amend that. Totally unofficial name, by the way, unless I missed something. Basically, what the writers wanted to do was add in more mystery again, while not actually giving any answers. Basically, putting the Who back into Doctor Who. Andrew Cartmel always planned to leave in 1989, so any and all of the answers raised in his run were meant to be left up to others to answer, or not, depending on what they wanted to do. And Remembrance of the Daleks was the first instance of this. More specifically, the novelization features a sequence that is very important. The first appearance of the Other, the mysterious third member of the Big Three in Time Lord Society. In a flashback sequence, we see him speaking in the past with both Rassilon and Omega. But who is this guy? I guess we'll never know. Next up to talk about is Silver Nemesis, the actual 25th anniversary special of Doctor Who. I think it's fun. A lot of people really like to hate on this one because it's not Remembrance of the Daleks. Well, let me counter that with this. It's a story tackling issues of racism and civil rights, utilising an iconic legacy villain from Doctor Who's past, featuring lots of actions, with two sides fighting over an ancient Gallifreyan weapon, this time called Nemesis. The main difference is that this weapon has a conscience. Even has the same resolution too, with the Cybermen being tricked into using the weapon on themselves, raising them as well. It's so wild that season 25 sees the Doctor's two greatest foes vanquished. Also featured in this episode is Lady Penford, who is a witch and also knows something about the Doctor's past that we don't. He's far more than just another Time Lord. Battlefield. The Brigadier is back. And so are these people who we've never met before. And the Doctor hasn't met before. Or has he? You see, in this episode, the Doctor runs into a story he hasn't fully started yet. Or has already completed? These knights from another dimension keep referring to him as Merlin and could recognize him no matter the face he wears. He seems to have defeated these villains in the past and knows enough about their rules to be able to defeat them now, but how? The story ends with the Doctor finding a note explaining the full truth of the matter. Who's that note from, by the way?
The Doctor.
Oh, well, that sorts that out.
And now we move on to Ghostlight, tied with Warrior's Gate for one of, if not the most, needlessly overcomplicated episode of classic Who ever. And that's because this episode was originally meant to be Lungbarrow. Yes, this is the watered down version. Okay, let me explain. The Doctor and Ace arrive at this old house, looking to be from Victorian times. We're introduced to quite the cast of characters who all seem to be utterly insane. Tensions raise higher when Ace realizes where this actually is. Perivale, her hometown, and this house is Gabriel Chase, the place which is burned down in the present, but Ace explored for a dare at 13. Apparently, off screen, she had told the Doctor this story and of the great evil she felt here. Intrigued, the Doctor tricked her and took her here against her will. But why? And what's going on? Okay, so in the past, a spaceship crashed here with 3 beings on board: Light, Control, and Smith. They came here to collect samples to catalogue all life on Earth, but now Smith has mutinied against Light and is keeping him in stasis on the ship. He then plans to take over the British Empire. It's crazy how these things escalate. Light then awakens and starts killing everyone, but then the Doctor manages to convince him to stop. More or less. Guys, look, I'm trying my best. The Curse of Fenric. A story about vampires, demons, ancient evils, all in the Second World War. This is pretty good stuff. Here, the Doctor battles Fenric, an evil entity that somehow fought the Doctor before. Previously bested and imprisoned, it has now escaped and has been manipulating all events from behind the scenes. From Ace being sent to Iceworld to the very happenings playing out right now. She was implanted in the Doctor's life because she has Fenric's evil inside of her. Because at this moment, the baby, the daughter of the woman from the army, is Ace's mother. The mother she hates. Mind blown! The Doctor defeated Fenric last time by carving chess pieces out of bones and banishing him. But now, how will he escape? By revealing that he knew. He knew the whole time. He tears into Ace, exposing all of her deepest flaws and insecurities, and shattering her faith in him. And then Fenric is defeated. Later on the beach, he tries to explain that he didn't mean it, that he had to break her faith for Fenric to be bested. Ace is deeply troubled by the events of the story. She needs to let go. She dives into the water, something she was previously frightened of, and washes herself of her baggage. She comes out lighter, unburdened by the trauma she had once endured. The pair walk off back to the TARDIS. This episode really showcases the 7th Doctor's scheming nature and makes you wonder, where can we go from here? Next episode, the show got cancelled. What a bummer. But the story's not over yet. In fact, it's barely starting. Yes, I think I should just say it. That right there, all that, it was all set up. All of the backstory I just gave you over 3 series of Doctor Who is the necessary information that you need to know. Not all the information that you need to know, but strictly the necessary information. I just had to give you all that context because otherwise I would just be speaking just unintelligible nonsense. I mean, to be honest, I might still be, but at least you have a chance to understand me now. And so, with all that said, now you know that, let's get on to the real video. Welcome to the 90s, where things are shit and Doctor Who isn't on TV. But don't worry friends, we can get our fix in other ways, like The Stranger. For legal reasons, this is totally not Doctor Who. Who even are these people? I don't know. But we also had the VNAs, the Virgin New Adventures, published by Virgin Books. Technically, they're just the New Adventures, but VNA rolls off the tongue. This range served as the continuation of Doctor Who, following on from the end of where the show left off at Survival. The 7th Doctor and Ace went on, and new stories were told. new adult stories. Now guys, I'm gonna tell you something right now. Just being honest, I have not read all of the VNAs because I don't really like the VNAs. At this point, Doctor Who was being written solely by the fans. And the fans in the 90s were really horny. Too horny. Too goddamn horny. Get that shit out of my Doctor Who. The VNAs were meant to be for an older audience. And nowhere is that more clear than with the introduction of the new companion to replace Ace, Bernice Summerfield, the Proto River song, and basically all of the 90s writers' wet dreams. And it is really off-putting. I'm sorry guys, I don't want to read your adult fanfics. Now I'm not saying it's all bad, I'm just saying I personally find it quite unpleasant. It's like Torchwood, but without the charm. Literally, a lot of this shit feels like Torchwood. But if that's your thing, go on ahead. There is a lot of naked Ace in these books. Too much, in my opinion. But let's go over the points of interest, because I'm sure there might be at least a little bit of this stuff you're interested in. You see, this is one of the most important times in Doctor Who's history. Influential too. Let me know if you see what I mean. The series begins with Time Rim Genesis. Crazy story that then leads into 3 others and basically sets the scene for what to expect from this series as a whole. As much as possible crammed into every page. The lore is crazy. The 8th novel released is Nightshade, written by Mark Gatiss, and actually is one of the better ones. This is not too bad. The villain, the Sentience, pretty damn cool. Good job, Mark Gatiss. Love and War is up next and sees the introduction of Bernice Summerfield, written by Paul Cornell. I wonder if he shows up again. A lot of familiar names here. Gareth Roberts, Ben Aronovich, David Banks, and it's about the Cybermen. Of course it is. There are a lot of these books. A lot. Hey, I know you. Damaged Goods 1996 was written by Russell T Davies and is all about cocaine. Drugs. It's all about drugs.
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
The next book released after this is called So Vile a Sin. What a coincidence. Almost as big as a coincidence as there being a character in this book called Gabriel Tyler. The whole story revolves around the Tyler family. And of course there is also gay sex and HIV. Who wrote this again? The 8th Doctor also shows up in this one. Maybe, wink wink. It's basically like the old musical The Blood Brothers but Doctor Who. But you may have noticed, hang on, this book released in 1996. That's when the movie released. And so it was, keen-eyed viewers. The VNAs had to be scrapped, as BBC Books took back the license. And so, Mark Platt was tasked with wrapping it all up. He had to tie up all the loose ends, finish the story that 60 books had been building up to tell, and tie it into the movie to boot. But this was no regular writer we're talking about here. Mark Platt is the same man who wrote Ghostlight, The Silver Turk, and a personal favourite of mine, Spare Parts. And so, with everyone counting on him, he delivered the finale of the Doctor Who New Adventures, Lungbarrow. Hey guys, we're finally on the topic of the video. I think to give context, I should read a bit from the preface from the 2003 version of the book. The idea of the Doctor's family had been knocking around my head for years before I ever got commissioned for the TV series in 1988. After a quarter of a century, we'd learned an awful lot about the Doctor. That was unavoidable, but there was now precious little Who left in him. We all want to know about him, but we also want him to remain a mystery too. My idea was to start afresh. To clear the decks, I'd commit the cardinal sin of answering the fundamental questions, and then knock the explanation sideways with a whole barrel load of new ones. You open the locked box only to find another locked box inside. Only this one's bigger. The more layers of the Doctor you peel away, the stranger and darker he gets. And he stays the same, a mystery. I'd been woken at 5 AM one morning by the idea of the family and the living house. The last thing the Doctor's family could be was obvious. He comes from an alien planet, however terrestrial and British its inhabitants appear. So I was determined to get away from the Earth-style 2 to 4 sort of family. It had to be strange, yet familiar too. The idea I woke up with arrived in such detail that I got quite feverish, unable to get it written down fast enough. 1 loom, 45 cousins, 2 drudges and 1 very grumpy house were all in place along with their hierarchy and their terrible fate. And then I sat on the story for a long time, not daring to submit the storyline. It was too outrageous. I was venturing into forbidden territory. Originally, this story was meant to be Ghostlight, but John Nathan Turner had decided it would be too radical. Instead, we had to wait. And buckle up, people, this is one crazy story. Season 15 of Doctor Who ends with the Doctor's companion Leela deciding to stay behind on Gallifrey. She had fallen in love with a man named Andred, and her travels with the Doctor came to an end. Shortly after, a time lady called Romana took her place and travelled with the Doctor for a while. Eventually, she too also left, returning to Gallifrey and becoming the High President. The story begins with Romana wanting to contact the Doctor, but she can't find him, so she tries to get Ace instead, now being referred to as Dorothy with 2 E's and an accent. She's become a guardian of time and now has a time-travelling motorbike. I don't think that's canon anymore. Anyway, she tries to get her, but Romana's political enemies intercept the transmat, create a virtual copy of the younger version of her so that they can question her about the Doctor. Meanwhile, the Doctor and new companion Chris Quedge, who shut up a little bit ago and lost his girlfriend Roz, have landed in a dusty old house, somewhere where Romana can't find him. It's a very weird house, very cerebral. A lot of out-of-body experiences, not obeying the laws of physics, that sort of thing. It's called a Great House, and it's basically a representation of a family of Time Lords. It contains a certain number of members, or cousins, because they're technically related, but not like brother-sister related. The house itself is also alive, and has a conscience of its own, but their main purpose is for Time Lord reproduction. And the way they do that is through looms, which are the only way Time Lords can multiply now after a war in the past with the Pythia, an all-female priesthood who were defeated but cursed Gallifrey and made it a sterile planet. No longer could Gallifreyan women give birth. It's kind of like Half-Life 2, except not really. This event was called the Great Schism. Looms are more or less like the Kryptonian Codex from Man of Steel. That's the simplest explanation I can possibly think of. It's not entirely accurate, but it'll fit. Anyway, Andred from season 15, who is now a Castellan, hears that the transduction to get Ace has failed. Leela feels neglected and is distracting herself by uncovering a mystery with K9, the mystery of the House of Lungbarrow. Dun dun dun! That's the name! And it disappeared 673 years ago. Strange. Skipping over a bunch of stuff, the Doctor tries to open a window, but realizes that outside is only soil. The house is buried underground and has been for all that time. Chris is going insane, and the Doctor explains that that is because he is psychic and has been used by the TARDIS as basically backup storage for the Doctor's memories. So he's basically walking around, screaming, wandering, just having a rough old time. But the reason the Doctor was brought to Lungbarrow was that they needed to perform a ritual of some kind. I don't really know. To undo a type of curse. And to do that, all of the cousins are needed to be present, including the Doctor, because he's from the House of Lungbarrow. However, when the Doctor gets there, someone else dies. So now we gotta get them as well. Except the Doctor murdered them? Maybe. I think so. Meanwhile with Leela, she got caught for messing with information she wasn't meant to, but got rescued by Andred. And now they've got to fight against some Time Lord terrorists who want to overthrow Gallifreyan government while Romana is off-world doing some really important stuff off-screen. Back with Chris, he's having visions of the First Doctor and when he first left Gallifrey. The First Doctor did a double bluff by sending a letter accusing the House of Lungbarrow of being a cousin over the quota and then stole a TARDIS, but accidentally, because of the Hand of Omega, the Type 40 he took was hit beyond the back time buffers into the far past of Gallifreyan history. history, further than what you are supposed to. Meanwhile, the current Doctor is trying to make sure that the house doesn't realise that they're a member Shaw, because otherwise it will get very angry. But all of the cousins in there with him are insane. They're crazy. And to be fair, I would be too if my name was Glosbin, or Sathralope, or Innerset. Quences? What the hell are these names? Ace and Leela arrive at the house, following the trail of one of Andred's ancestors, who they find in stasis, but are taken by the cousins to go to a dinner, where they talk about the Pythia and the other. There's a whole play reenactment of his battle with Rassilon, which ends with the puppet version of the other merging, in a way, with the puppet version of the Doctor. This is because the Doctor is the other, or at least a reincarnated version of him. It's left intentionally vague. The start of the Doctor's time stream kind of looks like this. Do you see the problem? Remember, this plotline is meant to reintroduce mystery into the Doctor's origins. But then, his family accuses him of having all of the memories of the other, and also leaving his family to die while he travelled the universe. But the Doctor denies these things. The Doctor and his friends run through the house and are met with a series of memories, including the real confrontation between Rassilon and the other. Rassilon wants to kill everyone to gain ultimate power, but the other stops him. However, knowing that Rassilon will use his family against him, he sends his granddaughter Susan off-world to the planet Tercerus. He then sacrificed himself to end the conflict by implanting himself in the House of Lungbarrow's Loom's genetics, destroying him in the process. 1 year later, the first Doctor arrives on Tercerus, right after that vision Chris saw a while ago of him getting sent into the past by the Hand of Omega. He doesn't recognise Susan, but she recognises him. He immediately and instinctively takes her under his wing, leading into the events of the actual show. Land in 1960s Earth, Susan goes to Coal Hill, they make a couple trips back and forth, Ian and Barbara follow her home, the TARDIS gets stuck as a police box, and then we just go from there. But then, with the current Doctor, the Doctor and his friends get caught, and are taken to answer for their crimes, aka the Doctor's crimes of being the other and also running away. However, Ace has a plan. Nitro 9 works every time. The Doctor tricks the family into letting him enter back into the TARDIS and gets rid of all the excess subconscious memories that were clouding Chris's judgment, letting go of the past and saying that he trusts he doesn't need to know the rest. The house itself is furious and is basically going on a rampage. The Doctor rejects his destiny as the new chosen heir to the role of head of the House of Lungbarrow, but downloads a template of the family loom before the house ends up destroying itself, tearing itself apart and then throwing itself off a cliff, with Chris barely saving the Doctor in the nick of time. To the survivors, the Doctor says a new house will be grown, and Romana returns to end the conflict. But we're not done just yet. Oh no, we still have one more bombshell to end on. Leela's pregnant! The first natural birth on Gallifrey. Romana lets us all know that she has negotiated peace with the Sisterhood of Khan, and that the curse of the Pythia is lifted. Gallifrey is no longer a sterile planet. Woohoo! The Doctor has a small conversation with Leela, in which he tells her to name the child after him. Oh no. And now we're back full circle. Romana has the Doctor and she has a mission for him. A mission with a solid 4% chance of survival. He must make the treacherous journey to recover the Master's remains from Skaro. Chris decides to stay behind on Gallifrey, becoming a Time Lord, just as Leela had. And the Doctor says that it doesn't matter who he once was, but who he is now. The Doctor. This shit is fucking crazy. And there you have it. The most complicated book in Doctor Who history, maybe, summarized in however long that was. Not that long. I thought I did it pretty well. Did that make sense? No? Well, I tried. Here's the TLDR version. Romana want Doctor. Doctor no there. She get Ace instead. Ace no there. Doctor in house. House no in Doctor. Doctor no in Doctor. Doctor in other. In Doctor in house. Ace with Leela. Leela pregnant. Doctor other Doctor. Doctor home. The end. It's basically a really overcomplicated version of the Timeless Children. People want to act like these two are totally different. They're so different, bro. You can't even conceive how different they are. They're not the same at all. They're quite similar. But wait, we still have one twist. One show-defining, reality-bending twist, which, bros, I don't know if I can handle this. Leela is pregnant. That much we know. But a father from Gallifrey and a mother of Earthstock. That's an unusual pedigree. Just call him after me. Leela is pregnant with the Doctor. She is the Doctor's mum. She is his mother. The Doctor is half human. He is. But what about this story, eh? It is a tough read. But not as tough as that price on eBay. Holy sheesh! Luckily, I didn't have to buy a copy for this video, but I did have to read it, which is almost as bad. Now, I'm not a non-reader. I read a lot of books, especially recently, but the amount of crazy names, plot lines, which I just don't care about, incredibly complicated sci-fi shenanigans, this was dense. And dude, let me show you something which I cannot explain in any other way except by showing you what it actually says on the page. The tone of this book is so flip-floppy, from super serious, super adult to satire, joking, making fun of itself. It is too jarring. This is the first thing you see when you open the book. Previously on the New Adventures, Messenger, Rassilon, the dying Pythia cursed Gallifrey. There will be no more children. The world is barren and doomed. Rassilon, don't. Shadowy man, told you so. Now about the shortage of housing. Bro, what?
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now, of course, I skipped over a lot of the details. A lot of the details. Of not just the book, but of everything in the VNAs. You can imagine I wanted this video to be as smooth as possible. I kind of glossed over a few of the plot points, but if I didn't, this video would be 9 hours long and not fun. It'd be very boring. There is a reference or callback at least once a page, and the story is so wrapped up in lore upon lore that after a while you straight up get dizzy. But with all that said, I would highly recommend checking the books out for yourself. There is quite a lot there that I'm sure a lot of you watching would really appreciate. See what I missed? I am a massive fan of all of the writers involved in the VNAs and Andrew Cartmel himself. I know the guy still has Twitter or X or whatever it's called, meaning he is active online, so if he somehow sees this video, much love, my brother. You are awesome. Big fan. Mark Platt as well, incredibly talented. This was an achievement. The finale of the VNAs and the end of an era of Doctor Who. Except for that last one. Just had to sneak that one in there, didn't you? But with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Surely I earned it if you're still here watching. 92% of people who watch don't subscribe. So subscribe now to join the best community in the world. And if you want to help support the channel, you can click the join button below to become one of the GOATs that keeps this show going, helping you gain access to a multitude of perks and benefits, including access to the Discord server to talk with all of us, commentary videos over the new Doctor Who episodes, and exclusive member content. Thank you to the members: Just Tim, Teddy Bites, Green Goko, Oz Baxter, Eric is Waiting, Ido First, Andrea Lee, Kastretch, Pot Noodle OW, Leah S, Architect, Maggie132, Nico 3DS, Rouge Argentine, Zach Pollock, Ertle the Turtle, and Casual Lock. And with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. What a handful.